Discovering Justice. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I am the host of Discovering Justice. You can see information about this program and many of our other programs by visiting www.discoveringjustic.net. And please contact me if there is anything I can help you with as far as information, or if you have any ideas as to future programs. Today we have a wonderful guest, Attorney Terry Kennedy. He is from the law office of Terry Kennedy, and he is also in the Governor's Council. Welcome
Hi,
to
Lucy.
the program,
Thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. So, are you a new member of the Governor's
I am.
Council?
The last time I was here, I was a candidate, and you had myself on as well as my opponent. And I was sworn in on January 6th with 2 other new members to the Governor's Council. So out of the 8-member body, we have 3 new members.
Oh, congratulations, Terry. And what is the Governor's Council?
Well, the Governor's Council is a constitutional body. That is, it's when John Adams wrote the Massachusetts Constitution, he included a Governor's Council in it. It had actually pre-existed the Massachusetts Constitution. Its original function was to protect the king's money, but their function is very, very different now. Their major function is to approve the nomination of various judicial officers, such as Supreme Judicial Court justices, parole board members, Superior Court judges, district court judges, probate court judges, clerk magistrates, as well as a variety of other appointments that have to get approved after they're nominated by the governor. If they don't get the approval of the council, they don't get the position. That's
really impressive. And when are you, as part of your duties, you have to have meetings, and this is how you elect this?
We meet at 12 o'clock every Wednesday in a chamber that is right next to the governor's office. At a typical meeting, we would approve the appointment of notary publics, justice of the peace. We'd approve the warrants. That is, we spend your money every week. We signed a warrant spending $950 million this week.
Oh.
So it's substantial amounts of money, and the Constitution provides that no money shall be expended from the state treasury without the consent of the Governor's Council. So we're the last step in the budgetary process.
Very interesting. How many Governor's Councils are there?
There are 8. There are 8 districts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the Lieutenant Governor sits as a 9th member. The only function the Lieutenant Governor has under the Massachusetts Constitution, although he obviously takes on many, many other duties that are delegated to him, but his only official function is to preside over the Governor's Council.
Ah, wonderful. I think we have a map that you've prepared and brought for us, the map of all the districts. And I see the map over there, Terry. Terry, which one is your district?
My district is the 6th district, which is in purple over there. It includes a very large section of the city of Boston, Allston, Brighton, Beacon Hill, the West End, the North End, Charlestown, East Boston. That's the section of Boston it includes, and it goes all the way up to Billerica. There's 20 cities and towns in my district, almost 1 million people.
And how many districts are there?
There are 8.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
8 altogether. 2 very large districts area-wise in the western part of the state.
That'd be the green part?
The green and the blue, which is, the green is Councilor Merrigan, and the blue is Councilor Casey. She's a new member, a Republican new member. There were 2 Republicans on the council and 6 Democrats.
Oh, interesting, Terry. How often are the meetings of the Governor's Council?
Well, the regular meetings are once a week, 12 o'clock on Wednesdays. But when there's a particular nomination, we also have hearings that are not part of the regular meetings. For example, recently there was an appointment to the Supreme Judicial Court that we voted on yesterday, Justice Barbara Lenk.
Yes.
She was nominated by the governor. Her hearing was scheduled for a week ago Wednesday. At the hearing, people come in and testify as to her credentials. People testify in favor of the appointment. People testify in opposition to the appointment. The councilors question the witnesses, and they question the nominee as well. That particular hearing lasted almost 12 hours.
Oh.
It started at 10 o'clock in the morning and ended around 9 o'clock at night with 2 very short breaks.
That's intense.
Then the following week, we voted on the nomination, which was yesterday. It was approved 5-3. 5 in favor, 5 councilors voted in favor, and 3 voted against. So that's typical of the process with a particular nominee. There's a hearing scheduled, usually on a Wednesday at the times outside of the regular meeting, but occasionally on other days of the week. Since I've been on the Governor's Council, I got sworn in January 6th, we've had hearings almost every week that have gone at least 4 or 5 hours a week, in addition to the regular meetings and the work that you do outside of the actual meeting time. You can't, you have to prepare.
So how many hours is that the Governor's Council responsibilities and the work that it entails? So.
Historically, it hasn't been as onerous as it has since I've been on it, or so I'm told. There have been an incredible amount of nominations since January 6th in issues that the council has had to deal with that has probably taken up between time in the hearings and outside the hearings at least 30 to 40 hours a week, in addition to my law practice. So my days get very, very long. It's supposed to be a part-time position. It's not by design. It's not intended to be a full-time position. But since January 6th, we've had 2 Supreme Judicial Court nominees. Typically, you might go 2 terms without one. And in the short time I've been on there, we've had 2. We've had to pick a new chairman of the parole board because of issues that happened with the parole board. We've also had to replace 4 other members. Each one of these required a hearing, and those parole hearings were very controversial. They went on for many, many hours. We also had 2 Superior Court judges, a juvenile court judge, a district court judge, 1 clerk that I can remember, and that's just since January 6th. So it's been a nonstop, ongoing event.
You sound very busy.
Yeah, it's a lot more work than I anticipated. I'm happy to do it, and I am enjoying it very much, but it's a lot more work than I anticipated. For example, with the Supreme Court judges, both of the nominees came from the appeals court, which Judge Duffley had been on the appeals court for 10 years, and Justice Lenk had been on the appeals court since 1995. So they had a body of work, participated in thousands, literally thousands of appellate decisions. We had to read them, and that's in our own time at home, so that we can figure out what their position is with respect to various issues, so that we can question them on positions that they took that were controversial. And it just takes a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of effort.
I can only imagine reading each of those decisions to be prepared, and that's seems like a lot of work. And are these hearings public?
Yes. All the hearings are open to the public, and anyone can testify at a hearing. There are groups of individuals that are at every hearing and testify at every hearing about particular nominees and offer their views as to whether the nomination should be approved. In addition to that, sometimes you'll have a neighbor come in that is in favor of someone or opposed to someone. You might have someone that just has an interest in a particular decision that the nominee may have written and comes in to either in favor or opposition of them on that basis.
Sorry, tell me where your meetings are again.
They're in the governor's office. There is a chamber right next to the governor's office. It's the council chamber.
Okay, so for all those, all the people who are watching Terry Kennedy today, he's the Governor's Council. It's Attorney Terry Kennedy. He's a private attorney with his own law office, and he's also an elected member of the Governor's Council, recently elected this year. and of the 6th district. If you are interested in following the Governor's Council's activities, they are on the internet, and you can visit the hearings. They are public, and they are at the chamber at the State House. So Terry, I just saw the map, how big some of the districts were, and that just seems like it could be a nightmare, electing, running.
The way the districts are made up is each one consists of 5 senatorial districts. It's because there's 40 senators, and you need 1/8 of the state. I needed my daughter, who was a math major at BC, to explain to me that 1/8 of 40, that is 5 senatorial districts. But but it's an incredible amount of space to cover, both in terms of area and population. As I said, it's almost 1 million people. It's larger than a congressional district.
Looks like.
It is. It's a congressional district is 1/10 of the state. These are 1/8 of the state. There are 10 congressmen, soon to be 9, but the amount of work it takes to run for this office is equivalent to what it takes to run for a congressional office. But unlike a congressional candidate, we don't have $2 million to spend on it.
I know.
So it's mostly legwork. It's just getting out there and shaking a lot of hands and knocking on a lot of doors and spending your nights and your weekends and a lot of days there. And also getting a lot of help from a lot of people.
And so that seems like the process is really difficult to get your name out there. You want to tell us about your election and what's the process of getting elected? And
well, like any election, you have to fill out nomination papers. You need to get 1,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Certified signatures. Some of the signatures don't get certified, so you need to get probably 2,000 signatures really to get on the ballot. Then you start campaigning. You go from city to town, hitting various events and meeting people. You start out by meeting the activist people in the particular town, the political people. Try to convince them that you're the best candidate. You can't go door to door for 1 million people. So you have to find people in a particular town that know the people. That can say, hey, this is a good candidate, and here's why. When you're done with the nomination papers, they have to be submitted to the various cities and towns, then brought to the Secretary of State's office, where they're approved, and then you're on the ballot. And then there's a primary, a September primary, and then a November election. In my election, I had 1 opponent in the primary. And I had 3 opponents in the general election, a Republican and 2 independents. The general election, I finally ended up winning by about 50,000 votes.
Well, that sounds like it's notoriously hard to just run for office.
Well, it is, but running for office, it's my first time I ever ran for office. I was 52 years old. But you have to want to do it, certainly, that's for sure. You can't go in it half-hearted, because you can't put in the hours and the energy it takes to meet all those people and to do the groundwork that's necessary. So it is hard, but it's also a lot of fun. I found running for office to be a very enjoyable experience. I found serving to be a great experience, and I feel like I've really made a difference. The council, because of the new makeup of the council, there's a division in terms of how the split goes with the votes. Historically, it's been considered a rubber stamp with votes of 7-1 and 6-2. Now they're very, very close votes. Not every nominee is going to make it. Certainly no guarantee that every nominee is going to make it. On 3 occasions this year, which is unprecedented, there were tie votes, which means the governor has to come into the chamber, preside over the hearing, so the lieutenant governor can vote as a tiebreaker. And that's happened 3 times, and I'm told that has never occurred before.
That's true. That's really interesting, and that part of the Governor's Council's responsibilities are voting on the nominees for judges, but you also mentioned you vote on many other activities. I wanted to talk to you about the pardons or parole commutations or all those other many activities at the Governor's Council, those that nobody knows about.
Well, there has not been a commutation of pardons since Bill Weld was in office in 1994.
Interesting.
We had the whole Bill Clinton pardon scandal at the end of his term, and Governor Romney would certainly not entertain any pardons. He made that clear. I don't believe Governor Cellucci pardoned anybody, and there's been no commutations. So we haven't had an opportunity to address any of those yet. We actually raised that with the governor when we had lunch with him. He had all the councilors in the governor's office when we were first sworn in to a get-to-know-you lunch. And one of the concerns that I expressed was that there hadn't been any pardons or commutations. There are people who earn those. There are people who turn their life around, who are entitled to a new opportunity to move forward.
What are pardons and commutations?
Okay. Well, a pardon basically is you're forgiven for your past crimes. Typically, a person gets a pardon after they've been convicted of some crime many, many years ago, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and have lived an exemplary life since then. They've been active in social organizations and helping the needy, and really have done the right thing with their life. And for one reason or another, they want to clear their record and clear their name. And the governor has the right, with the consent of the governor's council, to pardon someone. And that is to forgive the crime so it is no longer a part of their record or part of their history that they're convicted of a particular crime.
And what is a commutation?
A commutation is when somebody is in prison and has been convicted of a crime and sentenced to a prison sentence. Typically, somebody's been convicted of, say, a first-degree murder. A person who has been convicted of first-degree murder is never eligible for parole. They have to spend the rest of their life in prison. If the governor, with the consent of the governor's council, commutes a sentence, and he can reduce the charge to a second-degree murder, which would make the person eligible for parole. As I said, that hasn't happened in many years.
And Terry, also part of the responsibilities of the Governor's Council are to appoint Justice of the Peace.
Yes.
And notaries.
Yes.
And tell us about those.
Well, notaries, we typically have many, many notaries every week that we approve. Usually, most of them are renewals that we approve on a weekly basis. Justice of the Peaces come up occasionally. A Justice of the Peace is appointed for a term of years. There are a limited number of them in each city and town by statute. They're capped. So there's only a few people in every city or town that will have one, depending on the population of the city or town. And they have to be appointed and approved by the Governor's Council. They usually, most of those people get reappointed because they've been doing it for a while. But we vote on those. We voted on probably half a dozen of those in the last few months.
And you're a criminal defense attorney, Terry.
I am, yes.
And with your practice, I think this has been a great experience to read all these decisions and be able to use them in your practice.
I've always read case law. But my practice has suffered somewhat in terms of the time I've been able to put into it because of the work I've been doing on the Governor's Council. My clients have, and I'm very dedicated to them, and I find the time to do what I have to do to make sure that they're well represented. But it is the Governor's Council is taking quite a bit of work, and I do a lot of trial work. I'm in court every day, pretty much. So it's a balancing act, somewhat of a difficult balancing act, but we're getting there in terms of figuring out how to do both.
Well, today we are with attorney Terry Kennedy, who is a solo practitioner with a criminal law practice. And he is also an elected member of the Governor's Council, and he's a new elected member of the 6th District in Massachusetts. So Terry, I'd like you to tell me, the Governor's Council is, nobody knows what it is, nobody knows how they get there.
It's somewhat of a controversial body at this point. People comment to me, friends and colleagues say, geez, you never heard about the Governor's Council. All of a sudden we're in the paper every day, which is surprising and certainly not what I expected. but it's somewhat controversial for a number of reasons. There's currently a bill.
Well, Terry, so the Governor's Council is nobody knew about it before, but now because of all the appointments and all the
Well, it's a
judges,
combination of,
yeah.
there are some live wires on the Governor's Council these days that are somewhat entertaining.
Yeah.
There are a lot, as I indicated, a lot of tie votes. It's a much closer vote in terms of the number of 5-3 and 4-4 votes there are. I think there was one parole board member that got a 7-1 vote. Everything else has either been 5-3 or 4-4. So that's, and the governor's had to come in, which hasn't happened in many years, so it's made it newsworthy. Plus, there's a lot of vetting going on of judges that didn't go on before. We get criticized sometimes for being too harsh on nominees, but a lot of those folks are getting lifetime appointments. They're going to be there for 10, 20, 30 years in some cases, with a limited ability to remove them. So you have to make sure that you pick the right person. You have to make sure that they're qualified, that they have the right temperament, and that requires asking them a lot of questions. I will say this, in my experience, all the counselors, every single one of them comes in well prepared. Every one of them reads the cases or reads the documentation they have to read to ask the questions. And every one of them treats the nominee respectfully, even when they ask tough questions. There are members of the council I don't agree with from a political standpoint, but that's what a democracy is about, is that we have different political views and we have bodies like this to debate them.
It's wonderful, Terry, wonderful. And I really commend you for your work. I know it's hard work you're putting into your work, and it sounds really committed, and you're passionate about it. When are the elections for city council?
The elections are every 2 years. I got elected in November, sworn in January 6th, and by this time next year, another election will be in full swing. It'll be a very busy election year because it's a presidential election, which people will be out there voting and working. So it's right around the corner. That's one of the issues with these types of races is that you're always running for office.
Yes.
As soon as you get in, it's time to start again.
Do you love it?
It depends on the day.
Will you run again?
At the end of a 12-hour hearing, you're pretty exhausted. But yes, I enjoy it very much, and yes, I will run again for a second term. I don't know if I'd run for a third term. I may, but it's not something that I'm going to be doing for the next 25 years. It's something I'll be doing for the next 3 to 5 years, I expect. Two to three terms.
Great, Terry. Well, we're coming to the conclusion of our program.
Already?
Already.
I just got here. Can I come back again?
Of course.
I got a lot more to say.
Is there something more you want to say?
Is there something more that I want to say?
Yes.
Lucy Rivera does a great job in this program. I hope everybody continues to watch it.
And Terry Kennedy is a really dedicated attorney, and I'm proud that you're part of that, and I'm humbled that you were able to come to our program today.
I'm delighted to come, and I'll come back anytime you want.
Thank you for coming here, and thank you to all of you for watching our program and for giving us your time. I hope that this brought some information to all of you regarding different agencies, and in this particular program, information about the Governor's Council and the different members. My name is Lucy Rivera, and I am the host of Discovering Justice. This program is also available on the internet at www.discoveringjustice.net. And again, you can email me at lucinda.rivera@gmail.com or at lucinda.rivera@discoveringjustice.net. And Terry Kennedy from the 6th District, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Lucy. I appreciate it.
And we will see you here soon, I hope.
I hope so.
Thank you to all of you.